How long should a manager's honeymoon period be? Hey folks and folkettes, I'm Cammy McDonald, and on tonight's Friday night football pitch, former manager Dennis Newell and I will be exploring that question and much more. As has been the case for our podcast so far, we'll be looking at how Scottish clubs fared in Europe this week and refereeing decisions again. And as always, we are joined by a guest to look at the expectations they have for their club's season. Tonight we're joined by Stenhousemuir follower James Kane. And as well as looking at his hopes for the season, we'll be asking how it felt cheering on the Warriors to their first title in history last season. We'll also have a look at the rather alarming rise of the ultra in Scottish football. Dennis, James, good evening. How are we tonight?
Good evening, Cammy. I'm fine. Yourself?
Not bad at all, mate. Not bad at all.
Right. Good evening,
Not
James.
bad at all.
Yeah, I'm well. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good evening to you, James.
To
Obviously, we've hang on a minute. We share a mutual friendship, James. Obviously, the guy that Dennis and I used to do our radio show with, Stuart Coleman.
Indeed, Stuart and I did go to school together. I'd love to say I look much younger, but I can't get away with that, to be honest. He's keeping himself in great shape as our Stuart and looking well. So if you're out there, Stuart, I hope you're enjoying, and best wishes to you and the family.
Yeah, I'd seen. I think I met him and his good lady wife about a year or so ago in Edinburgh, and I know Dennis was saying it was the supermarket. So he definitely keeps himself quiet. But anyway, that's by the by. So Dennis, obviously, question for yourself as the former manager amongst us. How long do you reckon a manager's honeymoon period should last? I mean, obviously we've had a couple of sackings, but I think there's dissensions already about 2 or 3 managers, how their season has been. Guys who maybe had a decent season last season, already getting a bit of abuse. So obviously you saw your time out East Stirling, obviously when you were in the Football League or the Scottish Football League. But how long do you think the manager's honeymoon period should last?
Cammy, that's a long-winded question in a lot of ways, because how do you break it down? That's the first thing. Is it supporters' demands? Is it directors? Is it results? Manager themselves? There's a whole variation of things. I think the problem nowadays is that we have a lot of demands from supporters, and without having a go at them, a lot of them don't know much about the game. And I think that goes a long way now for managers to be put under pressure. They don't understand the running of a club and what it takes to get 11 fit guys that can perform for you on a Saturday. You also look at how much money's been spent as well with clubs. You also look at what their expectations are within that particular season and beyond.
Yep.
So there's a bigger picture there that can be painted in relation to just saying, 18 months, I mean, I think that's about the average for a manager.
Yeah.
But the demands nowadays are far, what would you say, quicker to get the guillotine down in them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes from, I'll say one, I think there's bad appointments being made by directors at football clubs now. And I think that lends itself to the fact that they don't know much about the game. And also the supporter who is unbelievable now in their demands. And I think it's unfair because I said this last week, I think there's no manager of any club at any level doesn't bust a gut to try and get their team on the park and play well. There's no one I've ever came across that doesn't work their socks off week in and week out. And I can assure you, it doesn't matter what level you're at, you're 24/7 with it. And I think sometimes when the guy goes to the touchline on a Saturday and you put 11 guys out in the park and they don't perform, I mean, I used to spend the last quarter of an hour a game making excuses to the press.
Yeah.
Because you know they're going to ask some awkward questions. And I wasn't at the good end of the league, so, I was getting well used to how to handle the press at the end of the game. But there's an element there where you're really under pressure if you don't get results. So how long Well, we tried to dissect it last week with the likes of the Rangers scenario where the manager's under a bit of pressure there. And I'm saying at this moment in time, a knee-jerk reaction is easy to say. The end of this month, managers should be going down the road. But, I think you've got to give them a bit more saving grace, especially at the top flight, to at least September. Now, that's a long-winded answer to you. But I don't think you can start emptying people out the door until then, when you know that they're not going to be right for the club.
James, we've obviously seen a couple of sackings in Scotland this year. Nothing in the top league, although I don't think, looking at a couple of results, they'll be far away. But looking at likes Wraith Rovers, I think that was maybe non-football decisions. We've had that discussion before. Jim McIntyre last week saw the dismissal, or get dismissed at Arbroath last week. A side who'd maybe punched above their weight the last couple of seasons, but again, very, very quick to make a decision this season already. James.
Yeah, they've had a hard start to the season, obviously. Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, hear you fine. Yep, on you go. Yep, can hear you fine now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. They've had a hard start to the season. Arbroath was in the first couple of games, and for the team that have come down for the league above, they've struggled. Not what you'd have expected from them, but it's going to sound ridiculous when I say this, but they're almost struggling from the old Tottenham syndrome. They got to the Champions League final, they got a game away from the Premier League, everything was built up, the fans were so excited, everything was going, and then all of a sudden deflation, and they just can't pick themselves back up. It's going to take a bit of work, a bit of time, and the incumbents just now are David Gold and a friend of ours, Colin Hamilton, a local boy, who was the former captain. So best of luck to the guys. I hope they can turn it around and get the players' heads up and get them moving, because they're not a bad squad there. On the bigger picture, I do agree with Dennis. I think he's spot on. I can only talk about what I know and my other team out with Stenhousemuir's Aberdeen. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I think it's safe to say they've been a bit of a disaster for managers. And it's about, as Dennis says, what do the fans want? What do the fans expect? We all complain and moan about style of play. We want to watch good football. We want to have we want a Man City. Aberdeen brought in Stephen Glass, and Stephen Glass tried to become Man City, right? He tried to play football out. He brought in players. You were going to places like Ibrox having 70% possession. It was fantastic to watch, but you're losing 1-0. And there was no patience from the fans. It was a few months in, and you're going watching games where you're absolutely dominating. And for me, I would have given them another transfer window or two to try and change it. The truth is, the fans got on the case when we started losing. Once you're in that bottom half of the table, there's no respite. They bring in Robson. Robson had a fantastic end to the season. They won the games, but the football was awful. And if you were watching it, you were thinking, this can't last. We're scraping through here. We're winning. We're holding on by the skin of our teeth. But if you want long-term progress, I genuinely think you have to give a manager a couple of seasons to get his signings in to embed his style of play. And you might take the hit on the top 6. You might even flirt with relegation. But if you want to make long-term change, you need that patience. And I think the fans are a massive part of that. And, following on from Robson now, Aberdeen have brought in Thielen. He's had a fantastic start. We're 8 for 8 wins, which is brilliant. But it's almost been too easy. If the results start to go south, all of a sudden there's a massive disappointment. I think if he'd come in and started with the odd draw here and there, you might actually get an easier time in the long run. So we'll wait and see how that pans out. But so far, so good.
Good. Yeah, Dennis, as James is saying there, I think managerial consistency is something that's very, very important. If you're coming in and changing your manager every 6 months, the way likes of Hibs have been doing, if you're changing your manager every 6 months, players are unsure what's happening, etc. too. So you're not going to get the chance to build up a decent set of results.
You would like to think that the guy Gray at Hibs is going to get a fair chance, or was it a stopgap to basically say we don't know who else we can bring because we're exhausted in relation to bringing managers in here? So he's had a bad run, but he's had 2 games against Celtic, Hibs. The game before that was St Mirren, and what I seen with that was he hadn't addressed the real issue from last year, and that was the defence. the defence were shocking against St Mirren. Against Celtic, well, you don't really gauge too many people out with the Old Firm how they're going to compete. That's just taken for granted that you expect there's going to be mistakes and there's pressure as well. But when Hibs come up against St Mirren, I thought they've not changed much. There was no improvement. Now, whether they decide that it's Ross County, I think they've got tomorrow at the weekend.
No, it's Rangers Ross County. I know that much. Rangers Ross County. Hibs we were discussing it earlier on. Hibs are at home to Dundee.
It's Dundee. It's Dundee at home.
Tomorrow, yeah.
And that is a real test. And that really could be, we're talking about managers leaving clubs and the demands that are there. I think he's really under pressure. It's at home. The supporters will be in his back because Dundee, I think, are going really well. And I fear for him a little bit. But it's the expectations of the club again. And Hibs are probably the one you've highlighted there, Cammy, that are the most vulnerable if we use the word for changing managers.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that they have certainly a track record of doing so. A couple of seasons ago it was Jack Ross, who I think got 4 games. So they have a track record of getting rid of managers very, very early when either the directors or the fans or whatever else feel it's not working. And I think sometimes it is better the devil you know, rather than obviously chopping and changing too regularly. James, obviously Stenny, your other club, they got a bit of consistency off the park, with their managers, and see what that got for them last season.
Yep, my big team, Cammy, Stenhousemuir. And huge difference. I actually thanked a friend of mine who's a director at Queen of the South when I seen him recently for letting Gary Naismith go, because he's come in, he had a plan, and there was a brilliant thing on the internet, just a summary of the season. From the start of the season, he tells us how he wants to play, what he wants to do, how he's going to build a winning squad, and he followed through, and last year there was a period there, 12 wins in the trot, and it was just fantastic. It was like turning up every week, watching them get result after result, going to all the away games, absolutely magical time, to all that to culminate in, the first title in 140 years, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, that bit of consistency, continuity, he had a plan, and this season, he has a plan again. Let's hope that plan keeps us up there and hopefully even has us challenging. But no, given the manager a bit of time, but in Stenhousemuir's case, I think after a few years ago, the Scott Booth appointment, I think they spent a lot of money and a big squad with that, and it sort of set us back a few years. So I think the club's finally got a bit of stability and a manager that can hopefully take us up as high as we can go. Maybe not, it'd be nice to go another tier.
Yeah.
Is it two poor results? So when you look at it, James, that against Kelty, I know it's away from home, you would expect to get something out of that, and also against Alloa, who have now been brilliant. Where I know it's in a different league. It's that gap there that you can see. This is going to be a tougher shift than it was last year.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there, like the Kelty game. We could have had goals out of that. The Alloa game, which I never went to last week. I would just like to make a point there to any Alloa fans on. £20 for an away fan at Alloa is absolutely unacceptable. So I chose not to go.
Shocking.
But again, from what I'm told, we had plenty of chances in that game. Again, it's that old story, isn't it? You step up, you have to take your chances, and you have to keep the ball at the net. But we have been missing Nicky Jamieson with a hamstring injury at the back, who makes a big difference to our team. And the guys up front, once Matt Aiken gets his first goal this season, we'll start. We'll fire on from there. But we've got some real good attacking players this season. We've got young Ross Taylor out in the wing this season, has been great. Ewan O'Reilly. We've got the two Matties playing up front. Matty Yates, Matty Kennedy, and Matty Aiken. I think they'll kick on once they get to grips with the league. I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
We've not been outplayed in these games. We've just been, a little bit slacking. I think they'll tighten up.
Yeah, and the sides you've lost to are sitting first and second in the table just now as well. So, yeah, it's not a great start. As Dennis was saying, Hibs have lost twice to Celtic, which kind of colours things bad. It's the same for you guys. It's the top two sides in the league that'll beat you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're more than capable of holding our own this season. I think we will, but it
Yeah.
looks to be a week where anyone can beat anyone. In that week. So great, and just another little shout out to a friend of mine. We have lost to Kelty, but there's a little bit of me that doesn't mind so much because one of the kids that used to play football with my son, young Callum Flatman, who's signed to Hearts, is on loan at Kelty and got his first goal the other week in the first day of the season. So fair play to him. I hope he has a great season, but I still like Stenny to finish above them, clearly.
Yep. Be nice, obviously, for us as guys who are local to Stenhousemuir to see something like that anyway, and I certainly don't have any ill will against Stenhousemuir. In fact, at the end of that 12-game winning streak, it was probably them that started the resurgence of Clyde.
I knew this was coming. You can mention the score, Cammy. Yeah.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, I think that's where Clyde's resurgence did start last season. And the reason I was talking about the honeymoon period is I think there's a number of Clyde fans that are already starting to give Ian McCall a wee bit of pelters, despite the fact that obviously he kept him in that league last season. And I think there's a couple of fans have been saying, well, if things don't improve, it could well be that Clyde are back in that position again. So that's kind of why I asked the question about the honeymoon period, because I think it is relevant to Clyde just now.
I think for me, Stenhousemuir, as we say, had that 12-game winning streak. We sort of ran away with the league at that point and kind of switched off. But for me, Clyde and Dumbarton were the two teams in the last sort of 5-10 games of that league that really came on strong and looked the part. And yeah, I would expect Clyde to be challenging this season, really.
Yeah, definitely should do. Anyway, moving away from the sort of bread and butter things into European football again. And I remember the old joke used to be that when it came to the Old Firm, and maybe even your own Aberdeen, James, that Scottish football time in Europe ended by Christmas. Out by Christmas. Just now, I think we're looking at out by the end of August, almost, Dennis. In terms, I think Killie are going to struggle to overturn that 2-0 defeat last night in Copenhagen, and Hearts are very, very disappointing. 1-0 defeat last night as well. So it's not been great for Scottish sides, Dennis, yet again.
Yeah, I think we just struggle how to deal with foreign teams. And the teams I've seen up to now, including the Rangers match as well, they've not been great shakes. But we have really struggled. And I think we've got as much talent as the teams that they've all played against. But we just don't seem to go over the finishing line. We have a tendency, which I've looked into it a bit more since we started the podcast, Cammy. Our ball watching in Scottish football is atrocious. Stuff that gets knocked out of kids when they're young to avoid ball watching. We're seeing that at the highest level. Seen it last week. Second goal against Kilmarnock. Guy's ball watching. He watches the corner coming in, and the bloke's 5 yards behind him, and he just strolls in front of him. Has a good finish in the back of the net.
Yeah.
The Hearts goal, big defender sitting at the back post. Doesn't he do what a defender's supposed to do? And I raised this last week. Clear the ball. Defenders, first and foremost, should clear the ball. Right? And just going back to the Kilmarnock goal as well. The defender headers the ball out to still within the 18-yard box, which was maybe more central than it needs to be. I just can't understand why defenders just don't go and defend and just make it simple. And, I think I spoke to you about that earlier on. The old statement that's been made before is, football is a simple game, complicated by coaches. And I see that we have lost sight of the basics. And when you read some of the reports of Naismith or whoever else, we need discipline and we need this and we've done that and we've done this. No, you've no. You've not done the basics. The basics are not there, or you wouldn't be losing these goals. Yeah. And I also don't like the idea of Scottish teams thinking they can defend. You can't defend against them. We're not equipped. That's not in our makeup. It's not in our genes in Scottish football to play a defensive game. We've seen it now in a few games since the start of the season. Teams going against the Old Firm or whatever else, and in Europe, try to defend. And, it just doesn't work. My own preference is, if I go at these teams, they're not brilliant. And, I look at Kilmarnock and Hearts. If they maybe had a go, you wouldn't have found that Derek McInnes was moaning about a really bad decision in the 75th minute where the actual VAR as well along with the referee, was called over to have a look at this, and it was a foot that was up high. And I'll tell you what, it was never a penalty. Never in 100 years was it a penalty. The actual Copenhagen player had his foot higher than the Kilmarnock player. Now, he scores from that. Okay, difficult to come back. But at the same time, why should you have put yourself in that position that that's what you're relying on? Similar to what Rangers, moaning about a bad decision with a referee, you're going to have that. VAR's a bomb scare when it comes to it. It's not perfect. And it'll be a long number of years, I think, before it ever will be perfect. But you've got to accept it. And if you're really looking at a match, you've got to say and have a goal up your sleeve that says, okay, if we got a wrong decision with the referee or VAR, we've got a cushion.
Yeah.
These teams are going out there just assuming, yeah, we'll be okay. In the last minute or just into injury time, Hearts are looking at what you'd call a good draw. But does it really need to get to that point? Now they're going to Tynecastle and saying, oh, we'll be okay there. How will you? It's still a bit of grass that the other team is going to come and say, by the way, we'll have a go at them. If we lose a goal, we've lost nothing. We're back to the same score again. So there's a mindset from where I am that says, wait a minute, let's try and win games. And then again, you look at it and you say to yourself, what are people going to watch football for? Entertainment. Packing a defence. No, it's not going to work either. So I can have a rant all day long about how we approach matches. But for me, I think a lot of the results have been self-inflicted in Europe. And I don't think we are, what we say, up to the mark yet.
Yeah. James, do you think Dennis is right? Are we showing too much respect to some of these minnows who are the foreign sides that were playing early in these competitions?
Wasn't that hard, James?
See, Cammy, I'm with Dennis to a point here, but I think the time of the season has an impact on this. You know, the fitness of the players at the start of the season. You've got players just coming in. You're still trying to sign squad. There's unsettlement. So people aren't kind of in the groove, you know. And Dennis will know in football, a week or two of not playing or not being up to speed makes a big difference. You know, we've watched Celtic go to America this summer and give Man City a beating, and was it Liverpool's? You know, they've been first class, but the difference in that is Man City are 2 or 3 weeks behind them in preparation. You know, we're going to these competitions with teams that are in the middle of their seasons or a month ahead. I think we really, really need to look at it if we want to progress, you know, because, you know, as an Aberdeen fan, we get kind of used to watching European games in the last few seasons. And I know there's been some horror results, but do you know what? Once we get into that group stage last year, we held their own with PAOK. We beat Frankfurt at home. You know, the teams are capable, but they need a chance to gel and get going in the season before they hit these games. And I think that's, plays a big part. Just the timing of our season doesn't lend itself particularly well.
I think you're spot on, James. That comes into the equation as well. But I still believe that there's an element there where basic mistakes, which I said right at the start, a ball watching, etc. I think 2 weeks down the line will not make any difference to that particular player. He'll still be ball watching this time next year. And that's the problem I've got, is the basics are not there. And yes, match fitness would help. They'll get to the ball maybe a bit quicker. But daydreaming in the latter stages of a game when you've maybe a chance of picking up a point doesn't work for me, especially when these guys are full-time.
Yeah, but I mean, FC Copenhagen, obviously Danish champions, or obviously playing their football in Denmark, obviously no champions for the UEFA Cup this year, or whatever that competition's now called. But I mean, they would have had the European football, the European championships that Scotland had too, you know. So how come they've managed to get their season started earlier?
Yeah, well,
you know. Their players should be the same as ours in terms, obviously, where they are in the season.
Well, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, to be
but
fair,
at the same time, you're never going to get a balance throughout Europe as to where and when people start. It's called Superliga, the Danish.
Yeah.
So you're in the position where you look at it and you say, what do we do? Do we all start off in a level playing field? It's never going to work. It's never, because we had this discussion last week about VAR in the lower divisions of Scottish football. It's no level playing field. It never will be. One, because of finances as well. and how weather's dictated in different countries and how they see it and approach it. So we'll never be able to go there, Cammy. It's never going to work. What we've got is what we need to work with. And, there's teams in the past, if you go way back to the 80s as well, when Aberdeen were absolutely magnificent in 83, in that era, were we questioning anything about them having bad weather up in Aberdeen at that time and progressing and beating teams like, Copenhagen, Real Madrid, stuff like that? No, we didn't. We never questioned it because you're winning. And I think there's an element as well where are our players fit enough? And if you're fit, match games certainly help, but I believe fitness goes a long way to it as well.
So the only thing to change that then, James, at the moment is self-perpetuating, but the only way to change that then is actually by being more successful in Europe, the coefficient going up, and you're coming into these competitions later in the season.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking in my head. Yeah, we just need to be further into the competition before we're starting really to get the best out of it. And tennis, we speak about players and fitness. I mean, last season, myself and Cammy were both watching the bottom tier of Scottish football. There's not a boy out there that's not 6 foot tall and 15 stone of muscle now. It's not your old retired boys with the beer belly turning up now. These guys are coming out of academies or dropping down for teams. They're athletes. I don't think fitness is really an issue across the board. I'm always really impressed when I see the boys coming out these days.
I've always a belief, James, that what you lack in skill, you make up for in fitness. And I think in Scotland, our skill factor is maybe a bit less than what we see in Europe. We might disagree with that. But the bottom line is, if we're fitter, then we will always be able to compete and maybe no lose slack goals. And that's really the point I'm trying to make is the slack goals that we're losing against these teams.
Mm-hmm. But as we were talking earlier on, Dennis, and maybe we're going a wee bit off the topic in terms of concentrating on the football, but as we were discussing earlier on, if we look at like warm-ups and things like that now before games, it almost looks as if players are kind of not so much clowning around, but there's no ball watching, there's no ball work, there's no skill work. It is basically just trying to get the player of a position where his muscles and his everything else is warmed up, ready to perform.
Yeah, but that's the element of just being toned up. And again, that goes back to, if we want to look at it, how much work have they done in the pre-season? I mean, the science that goes behind football now is unbelievable. It never was like that in my era. And, I'm just sometimes wonder whether it's overkill. I mean, we've had Andy Millen, who was at Kilmarnock when we done the radio, and Andy used to go through the science part of it that they had down at Rugby Park, and it was incredible. They would actually say, he's done 2 kilometres, that's plenty for him. Wait a minute, is he fit? It's not about the stats and the science that goes with it. I can stand at the side of the pitch and look at somebody and say he's fit, and you'll get a sports scientist who's saying at the side, no, he's done enough. Well, that speaks volumes.
Yeah. Even the dogs want to say so, Dennis.
He obviously doesn't agree with me.
Well, James, we touched on moving away from Europe, because I think it is quite depressing, the state of how poorly Scottish sides are doing in European competition. As you say, last year Aberdeen got to the league stages of their European competition. As I said, there's that many different competitions now, I can't even remember what they are. But again, touching on Stenhousemuir, 140 years, we mentioned it very, very briefly, 140 years without a trophy. And to go last season and essentially lift, yes, it's the lowest tier in Scottish football, but as somebody who it's almost their second side, how did it feel last season watching that?
Yeah, awesome. That's last season probably is when it became more of my first side than my second side, and my friend and I've been going to Stenhousemuir with the boys since we were in the academies and the boys teams, and used to go along after the game on a Saturday when I was coaching, and we've kind of kept it going. But over the last sort of 4 or 5 seasons, we got season tickets as adults, and my friend goes with me, who's also got a season ticket at Ibrox. And I think every other week last season he's like, I've just canned Ibrox, I'll get you up at the stadium, I'll meet you before the game and the Warriors, you get into it, it's different. You know yourself watching Clyde, you get to know the players, you get to know their families around about you. You know, you chat to the people. The fans are mixed. The atmosphere is great. But last season, watching that, you know, and having my sons beside me as well, you know, and they don't really understand. You know, they understand that Stenny's winning, but trying to get into this 140 years. People have lived their whole lives coming here, watching this, and
Yeah.
never seen this. You know, was a fantastic thing, and they've done. You know, the social media team at Stenhousemuir are fantastic. Some of the stuff they've done over that, and the presentation, and then the flag day, even at the start of the season was awesome. But the team, you know, they just hit momentum. They just got better and better. And you know, Colin and I, you know, my mate Colin and I, and we're pretty West Coast men, you know, but we were a bit kissing each other on the stand and we're scoring, you know, we're hugging each other and jumping up and down. And there's, you know, ended when we get a title. I was in Turkey with a wee tear in my eye, you know, watching it. It was absolutely epic, and that's the difference, isn't it? Watching
Yep.
football at that level, you know, you're invested, you know everybody, you know all the players, and it's not. You know, I think the game's getting closer and closer to where the professionals are. But in these games, you still never really know what's going to happen. You know, if you go to a Premier League game, somebody goes 1-up, usually they're going to win, or it's going to be, you know, you never really know exactly what you're going to get. So, no, I'm a big advocate for the lower tiers of football. But yeah, Stenhousemuir, you know, they deserve all the praise they got last season. Naismith came in with a plan. He brought in the players, you know, over time to implement it. Big Nat Wedderburn sitting in the middle, just bossing the game. The wingers, he's brought some real pace into the team. Big Matt Aiken deserves some sort of award because he's been getting his head kicked in all season off centre halves, you know, but he always manages to get in the end. He always manages to throw it in, and wee Matty Yates. I heard anecdotally there's been some interest in him that hadn't sort of come through, but some of the free kicks and some of his play last season was fantastic, you know, and I think he's definitely got a bright future. You know, he's definitely got a level or two up in him. So, no, all in all, just a fantastic thing to go through, you know, to go through that whole season. It could probably another 140 years before it happens again. But like I say, to me and my mate, that was our year last year. Just loved it.
Yeah.
You know, we've got photographs with players at the end of the season. You know, he's, like I say, dodging European nights at Ibrox to come to watch Stenny playing on, you know, on a wet Tuesday at Oakview. You know, that's
Yeah.
how invested it was. So no, fantastic. And yeah, let's hope we don't have to wait 140 years for it again.
True. And obviously, you're of an age where you're old enough to have remembered Aberdeen winning trophies. Maybe not quite 83 in terms of winning that European trophy, but you're old enough to remember it. So obviously, you might have a bit of recency bias, but which is greater, you know, Aberdeen lifting a cup or Stenny going on and lifting the sort of fourth tier of Scottish football last season?
Well, I went to Aberdeen's last cup final win, which was, of course, the big Park Red Day, if you remember, at Celtic Park. I think there's something like 46,000 Aberdeen fans there against Cali Thistle, and it ended up going to penalties, didn't it? And I can honestly say my overriding sense that day was just relief that we'd finally
Yeah.
won something. You know, it wasn't the joy; it was just sheer relief that we got over the line finally. So I think, you know, I think if Aberdeen ever won the league, I'd be beside myself. But you know, it's been a long time since I've been in that position. But somebody's got to challenge eventually. You know, whether it be us, whether it be Hearts, whether it be Hibs. At some point, somebody's got to get their act together. You know, I know Leicester was a 1 in a million, but you know, these things do happen in football. They throw themselves up,
Yeah.
and you know, nothing lasts forever. So hopefully, somebody will challenge. I don't even care who it is, to be honest. Just be nice to not be one of the big two.
Aye, yeah,
I think
100%.
sometimes so that maybe we look at the Aberdeens of this world, and there's always a fear factor going to the Old Firm. I always believe that they should maybe have maybe more a go and be looking at the lower teams in the division, maybe more cautious there. And you know, there's no point in beating the Old Firm and finding that you can beat with Ross County. Pointless exercise. But I think as a head start, you've really got to play, you know, Parkhead or Ibrox, and be looking to get something out of the game. No coming away with self-preservation that the manager's saying, "Oh, that was all right. I'll only give it beat 3-0. They'll live with that," and that's wrong. And I'll tell you what, I see that quite a lot. Self-preservation from managers, and really that's the wrong way to go about it. But who gets shortchanged with that is actually the supporters.
Well,
So
that goes back. So that goes back, Dennis, to the chat earlier though about the managerial merry-go-round, right? Derek McInnes lasted for years and years, but I couldn't tell you how many times I went to Hampden, watched us in a semi-final, sit in for an hour and be 2-0 down, trying not to get battered and nick a goal. You watch Stephen Glass went to Ibrox, genuinely had just under 80% possession, and you're going, if you're going to start beating them consistently, you need to be able to play better. You need a different plan, But the guy never got time and went. So, like I say, we'll see how the next manager goes. But you're right, you need to have a go. You need to have a game. Right, you're never going to outspend them, so you need to be able to tactically outplay them. But to go sit in and hope for a goal, and don't get me wrong, it maybe works 1 in 10 times, but I'd rather you went and got beat 2-0 or beat 3-2 having a go than go and sit in, because there's nothing worse as a fan than travelling and sitting for half an hour, watch your team on the 6-yard line go 2-0 down, and the game's in the bin.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
Kilmarnock done that against Celtic in the opening game. And I said that the first week we were on was basically Derek McInnes try to defend. He's tried it in Europe. It's not worked either. So you think even if you learn a lesson in Scottish Premiership, you would look at it and say to yourself, we can't do this. But what point you're making, James, is very important, is you're better getting out and getting beat and showing the supporters that you've got a bit about you and you've got to try and entertain. You're going to try and win football matches, which is what you're all about, instead of trying to do something that we're not capable of doing, and that's defending. 4 goals are dropped. So you look at it and you say to yourself, what is the point? Would it have made any difference if you get beat 6-0? At least you can go after that and talk to the press and say, well, I'll tell you what, we're here to entertain. We're going out there. And if it means that I'm under pressure because we're entertaining and we're doing our best, then I'm sorry. Instead of trying to defend and make themselves, and I'm not saying individuals do go out that way and make themselves look good if they only get a narrow defeat, but there seems to be an element of that there's a fear factor. They're not prepared to actually have a go. Just have a go. That's all we're asking.
Yeah. Well, coming up, we'll be taking a look at the fixtures coming up for this week, which is Dennis is going to get ready. So that feature comes to you in association with Kits_Scotland, who's their sponsors for the season. And as I say, in association with them, if you're looking for a football strip this year for your weigh-in, for yourself even, as I say, it's good quality gear over there. Give them a wee look on Instagram. As I say, that's at Kits_Scotland. And as I say, it's them that's going to be sponsoring our look at the upcoming fixtures. So, Dennis, where are we this week in Scotland then? Let's start with the Premier League. Split over both days, Saturday and Sunday. I'll let you take that from us.
Yeah, you want to actually go through the League Cup results first, because obviously that was something that was important.
That's fine, yeah. If you want to take a wee look at the results, no problem.
Yeah. Okay, well, last Saturday gave us Aberdeen beating Queen's Park 1-0. Dundee having a great result against Airdrie 6-1. Falkirk, who I tipped last week would beat Hearts, or they would be really giving them a tough time, beat Hearts 2-0. Spartans, again, could have been a banana skin, which it was. Spartans beating Ross County 1-0. Magnificent result. And Rangers beating St Johnstone 2-0. On the Sunday, Dundee United beat St Mirren 1-0. Motherwell beat Kilmarnock 1-0. And Celtic beat Hibernian 3-1. So you then look at the draw, and we've got Friday the 20th of September, Motherwell have got Dundee United. Saturday the 21st of September, Aberdeen are playing Spartans. Rangers are playing Dundee. And on the Sunday the 22nd of September, Celtic have Falkirk. I don't know what you think of the results, James.
The one thing I've just jotted down here, and it was a big shock to me last week, was Airdrie. Airdrie shipping those. I think Airdrie have been absolutely fantastic to watch the last 2 seasons. I have to admit, before Telling came in, I was a big advocate of McCabe, watching the way they play football, the way they knock it about, and they came close last season, for a team with no money. That's what we were talking about, a wee while ago there, that you've got to go and try something new. You've got to try and outplay people if you don't have the cash, and I think he's been a real credit to himself and his team. But they seem to throw up these odd results, and last week, I was quite taken aback that they got an absolute spanking, because I really didn't see it coming, to be honest. obviously my own team, I'm just glad to get through. I think Queen's Park were always going to be a sticky game. It's one of those ones you could fall on, and brilliant result for the Spartans. Again, team get a lot of time for. Good place to go on your travels, and I look forward to them coming to Pittodrie. I think, again, it goes back to that chat earlier. These guys aren't just amateurs. They're big, strong lads, and I think they'll put up a fight. They'll come and they'll defend and they'll have a go. So I think I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully we'll make it up to that. But no, I thought it was there wasn't a lot of upset last week. I think again, brilliant result for Falkirk. As a Stenny
but
fan,
I think
hate to
that's
say
a
it, but
result
they're
we all
absolutely
seen
flying,
coming.
and they're still flying.
I mean, I think that the thing about the
Yeah,
Falkirk result is it's probably the least surprise result. In terms of that, I think the three of us all picked that game last week for Falkirk to beat Hearts, Dennis, I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
And again, it is, James, definitely the least surprise result. Obviously, I'm even closer at the stadium than what you are. And Falkirk was absolutely buzzing last week. That the city, the town centre was mobbed, trying to get the driving around the stadium. It was just pointless, getting out in the car and things like that. So it's great to see that the town of Falkirk taking to the side again. Always is a successful Falkirk side. They're always going to be well supported. And this weekend, I think they've got Partick Thistle, so Falkirk again is going to be mobbed. But it is good to see.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, got a tough time the next round against Celtic at Parkhead. But hopefully they'll go and have a go. Just what we're talking about.
I was going to say, who's to say that won't be Celtic's toughest game up until that point of the season? I know they'll get Rangers at some point, but the way Rangers are playing just now, you'd expect that to be a formality. So who's to say Falkirk won't be Celtic's toughest game of the season so far?
Yeah, well,
in a month's time.
Well, obviously a few league games to go yet, so we'll see how it transpires. The other game is obviously a tough one for Rangers because Dundee are flying. As we just mentioned there, obviously their defeat of Airdrie, which was, as you know, 6-1. Really, really great result. Aberdeen and Spartans, that'll be an entertaining match. Spartans will go there with no fear whatsoever, and that'll be a tough match for Aberdeen.
Yep.
And then you've got a good tie there, I think, between Motherwell and Dundee United. So there's a few ties in the quarterfinals of the League Cup coming up. So look forward to that. Anyway, so if you're looking then at the Premier League, we've got Saturday the 24th is going to give us Dundee United versus St Johnstone. Hibs have Dundee. Rangers are playing Ross County. And on Sunday, St Mirren are playing Celtic. Aberdeen, Kilmarnock, and Motherwell have Hearts. All 3 o'clock, with the exception of the Sunday match with St Mirren playing Celtic. That's 12 o'clock. The league positions at this moment in time are leaving us with the situation of the bottom of the league is Kilmarnock having lost their 2 games. Hibs have lost their 2 games. Hearts have drawn 1, lost 1. Motherwell drawn 1, lost 1. Ross County drawn 2, and Dundee United drawn 2. The top of the league, obviously, Celtic and Aberdeen, and Dundee drawn 1 and winning 1. Rangers the same. St Johnstone have lost their first game and won the second one, which was a surprise. I think when we talked about that before the ball was kicked in earnest, we did feel that St Johnstone would maybe be struggling. They've picked up 3 points, which was great. St Mirren won their first game and lost the second. And that, to me, is almost a reverse role because up to that point, St Mirren were flying in Europe and really doing well. And I thought, could this be the slippery slope? But as we had Barry on, who was a St Mirren supporter, and he mentioned it as last year, getting the points in the bag at the early stages of the season was relevant for St Mirren being in that top 6 last year. And I think that's maybe what all these teams need to be jockeying for just now, is get the points on the board. Because, I think Dundee United are not the worst in the world yet. They've not got a victory yet, 2 draws. So there's a lot there. And as I say, games on Saturday and Sunday, with the 12 o'clock kickoff being Sunday, St Mirren against Celtic. The Championship, we've got games from last week, which was just the one. Ayr United beat Hamilton Accies 3-2. And the other fixtures that we've got for Saturday is Airdrie. We've got Queen's Park, Ayr United, Raith Rovers, Falkirk are playing Partick Thistle, Hamilton Accies, Dunfermline, and Livingston have got Greenock Morton. I don't know what your thoughts are in that one, Cammy, is how that'll go.
Yeah, I think you look at these games. Obviously, United flying at the top of the table. I think they were Barry's pick on the opening day in terms of who was going to lift that title. Falkirk, I think, have been flying. You know that they've taken on last season and taken it on to another level. You know, John McGlynn's doing a fantastic job there. And who's to argue over the weekend that Falkirk against Partick Thistle is not the game of the weekend, James?
I totally agree. I think I've actually scribbled that down before we came on tonight. I think that's a real test for Falkirk as well. You know, that's a team that should be challenging Partick Thistle, and they're capable of playing some good football. So that should be a cracker tomorrow. But I do think Falkirk will get the points again.
Yeah, well, I've obviously seen Partick Thistle this season on the live stream, and they certainly were outplayed at times by a Clyde side who had the tails up for that match, certainly. But no, I fully expect Falkirk to take the 3 points tomorrow on that one, Dennis.
Yeah, I think so. I tipped Falkirk, and they're sitting there having. Ayr United's obviously played a game more, having 3 victories out of 3. Falkirk's played 2, and they've got 2 victories. And then after that, you've got Livingston and Raith Rovers. That's your top 4 teams. Then at the bottom, you've got Dunfermline. I would expect more for them. I've not seen Dunfermline in years, so I couldn't comment on how they are actually doing. But 2 defeats at the start, I think, by anyone's standard, being a Dunfermline supporter, because I really think they're a big club. I don't know what's happening to them. I know they're in the Championship, and it's not the worst, but a start like that doesn't help. And to me, I'm old, so I remember being at the top flight. So there's an element there where I always feel they're a big club, and every time I pass their stadium, I think, wow, they shouldn't be struggling the way they've been doing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, without having seen them recently, why they're sitting down at the bottom of the league. I know it's only 2 games, but I would imagine they'll maybe pick up. Hamilton, another shock. I think they're capable of being further up, but it's too early to judge, as I said right at the start.
Yeah, well, these sides play tomorrow.
Just speaking of Dunfermline being a big club, Dennis, that was actually the first ever football match I went to, our first senior football match. My friend's dad took both of us as Aberdeen fans, and we went to Dunfermline and we watched Hans Heelhouse scoring over a head kick, and I think it was his second game.
Yeah.
And those were the days when Aberdeen were buying Dutch internationals, and bringing them in. But yeah, it's a great memories of East End Park, watching great players back in the day.
Yeah, a big club that's sort of struggled a bit in recent years. Into League One, we have Saturday the 17th, which was last week. Alloa, as we touched on, beat Stenhousemuir 1-0. Arbroath went down 3-0 to Kelty, and Cove Rangers drew with Dumbarton. And I don't think the dog liked that result either. Inverness Cali drew with Montrose, and Queen of the South drew, and Queen of the South beat Annan Athletic 2-0. I don't know if any of the results is something that you can pick up on.
Well, obviously, we featured the Queen of the South Annan game last week in terms, obviously, the Queen of the South manager, and one of the questions was asked by a listener. So I think Queen's obviously jumped above Annan Athletic with that victory, but I think that's the Queen of the South this season. I think should be one of the sides who are pushing for promotion at the top of that table.
Yeah, when I look at the league on that though, Kelty at the top. We talked about ambitions, and obviously they've got ambitions, but again, the size of the place, you just wonder how much support they can get and how far they can go. But they're certainly doing well with 2 victories and 1 draw. Arbroath then at the other end, and you did touch on that. Just expanding on that a little bit more, what's actually really going wrong with that, James, at Arbroath? I mean, you look at it 2 years ago, and you were seeing them on the television going great guns. Now they seem to be really struggling.
Yeah, I think you see it in football though, don't you? Teams get so close, and then when they don't quite make it, it takes them a couple of seasons to recover. You know what I say? Tottenham's probably the biggest. You know, they got so close. They got that European Cup final and then just plummeted for 2 seasons. You know, and I think that's it. Just gets in the psyche, doesn't it? That you know we're not making progress. We're not going to get there, and suddenly you don't have that belief anymore, and it's taken our growth down quite a bit from where they were. You know, they were real challengers for the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, and
That's right. It's so strange.
you know,
Yeah.
it's gutting for them. On your Queen of the South, funnily enough, you know, Queen of the South have always had, you know, the capability of being a big club, and again another local man, local to the Kilsyth area, big Jim Thompson. I remember him scoring a
Big
header on
Jim
a cup
Thompson,
final
yep.
for Queen of the South a few years ago. Another local man, I went to school with his brothers, myself, young Stuart, but you know, I've heard through the grapevine that all's not well in the Queen of South world, you know, and it's amazing how that unsettles the players. You know, everything goes on in the background, all their angling, and you know, I think they might be in for a harder season than they should, more because they're just, you know, from what I hear, they're not particularly well organised, and it seems to be, you know, that seems to get through to players. You know, the stability in the background. But I think, you know, League One, I think anybody can beat anybody this season. It's you know, there's no teams in there you turn up expecting to turn over. And Kelty's probably a bit of a shock to me actually how well they've gone from the start. But yeah, I think it's going to be tight all the way through.
Yeah. Well, Annan have got Alaba tomorrow. These are Saturday's fixtures. Dumbarton are playing Arbroath. Kelty have got Inverness. That'll be a real good tie because Inverness have tipped, which was maybe a loose cannon to throw it in there because of the situation they've been in recently. Stenhousemuir have got Cove Rangers, and that'll be another good tie. Cove struggling a bit this year. And Montrose have got Queen of the South, and that's a 5:30 kickoff. So there's definitely good ties in that division. Absolutely.
Games you would want to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dumbarton Arbroath's going to be that's a good game tomorrow as well. You know, Dumbarton are a strong team, and I think again Arbroath, if they're not careful, could lose it again. And you know, as we were talking about earlier, you want to get those points in the board early. They need to start getting some.
Yeah. We look into League Two, and
do we have to?
Sorry,
I said, do we have to?
All right, okay. Just for you, Cammy, we'll just do
cheers.
That. Yeah. Saturday the 17th last week gave us Clyde going down 2-0 to Stirling Albion. East Fife beating Forfar 2-1. Edinburgh City and Bonnyrigg Rose 2 each. And Peterhead beating Stranraer 1-0. Cammy, what was your thoughts on that defeat? Because obviously, I think you'd mentioned it to me before, but just hearing it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Clyde went a goal behind very early, and it's one of these kind of freak goals, you know, which came into the box and nobody seemed to go for the ball, and the next thing you know, it's in the back of the net, and then for the next 80 minutes or so, Clyde were chasing the game, trying to get a foothold in the match. McCall, I was very critical last week of Jordan Allen, who I've watched obviously on the streams maybe half a dozen times, and he hasn't looked as if he's capable of kicking his own arse. Last week I thought was his best game in front of goal. He looked to be giving Stirling Albion a bit of a it certainly looked a bit more motivated up front, and he was certainly getting the end of chances. Just again, Clyde were suffering for that final ball, but again, Jordan Allen did look a bit better, and I would have kept him on for the game. And then McCall made his usual sort of substitution where he's got to swap the strikers over. It's either Donaghy goes off and Allen comes on, or Allen comes off and Donaghy comes on. Well, he made that substitution, and Clyde just seemed to lose the impetus that they were trying to build in the game. And they were chasing the game, and Stirling Albion caught them with a sucker punch. I think Stirling Albion had 2 shots in goal, in fact 1 shot in goal, and scored with it. And as I say, the first one was a kind of bit of a freak. So as I say, I think Ian McCall did get a bit of abuse from certain on social media and things like that from Clyde supporters. So there is a wee bit of dissent in the stands there, certainly. But again, you're going to get that. If results aren't as what they should be.
See when you look at the stats for that, you've got an own goal against you in 11 minutes. It's not the end of the world, right? So you roll your sleeves up and you get on with it. Okay, you've got the second killer punch in 84 minutes. But Clyde has 61% of that game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
15 shots.
Yep.
5 against. Shots in target, 9. Stirling Albion, 4. So you can take that and say to yourself, you had the lion's share of the game. So you've got to look at it and say, what more do you need to really do? If you've got an own goal early doors, you can pick yourself up after 11 minutes. I just find that strange. And of course,
that's exactly what I'm saying, Dennis, you know.
Yeah, very strange.
Again, you would fully expect Clyde to go to Bonnie Rose and get a result tomorrow. Certainly, I think they need to, because they're now finding themselves as favourites for that league. They're now 5 points behind top of the table, and we've mentioned it 2 or 3 times, getting points on the board early. And as I said, I think that's where some of the dissent's coming from, is if Clyde don't get points on the board pretty soon, they could find themselves in a real struggling uphill battle. The one positive that's come out this week is, again, off the table, but I think the way Clyde have been the last number of years, and James has made reference to Queen of the South already, Clyde were given the award for being the best run club in League Two this last season, which I think speaks volumes for what Alan Maitland's done as chairman already since he's come into the club. And I think they were 11th in Scotland, so a wee bit of a award off the park there. But certainly Clyde fans want the success on the park as well.
And just remind everybody, Cammy, where are Clyde playing their games now?
They are playing their games at Hamilton at New Douglas Park.
Yeah, because somebody asked me that last week, and it was because not a lot of people actually know that. Yeah. Maybe I'm just talking to the wrong people, but it is strange that some people still think they're playing at Broadwood, which is welcome.
No, they haven't been there for a number of seasons.
No, I know that.
That's it, yeah.
Anyway. So your fixtures are, as you mentioned, Bonnie Rose against Clyde on Saturday. These Saturday fixtures, Forfar have got Edinburgh City, Spartans Peterhead, Stirling Albion have got East Fife, and Stranraer have Elgin. And James, you'll be looking at it and going, nah, we don't play in that division anymore. We're out of it. Stenny's gone up. But if you were picking a game there that you would go to in that division, what one would you choose?
I'm picking Bonnyrigg and Clyde all day, because my favourite player in that division is Big Kieran McGahey. If you're aware who he is, big fella, looks like Lewis Capaldi. Me and my son call him Lewis from Aldi, but he is absolutely brilliant. He gets dogs abuse off the away fans, but his weight, etc. And he's just hilarious. He gives it back. He's brilliant. The big man's got, great sense of humour. He gives it to the refs. He gives it to the opposition. He's absolute box office. So I hope Cammy enjoys watching him tomorrow, because I've always enjoyed watching him. Hopefully he's not on the winning side, but he's always great entertainment. Whenever he plays, he's great entertainment. So yeah, that would be my pick.
No bother. Yeah. And Elgin City facing probably the longest away trip in Scotland tomorrow, with a trip down to Stranraer. Yeah,
that's a marathon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been to both.
So yeah.
Been to both.
Aye, so have I. It's a long trip for both of them.
Anyway, just the Premier League, just touching on it, because I know our time's tight. Basically, when we look at it, I said to you off air, Brighton, I think, will struggle this year. Looked at the league, they're sitting at the top of the league.
Aye, that's what I say to you. They beat Everton last week, which doesn't take much. Let's be fair. I think a lot of sides will be doing that this season.
We've got just one game under their belt in the Premier League. I don't know how that's going to end up in relation to the next month. I think there's still a wee bit of business to be done there within the Premier League. Kyogo is from Celtic, maybe looking as if he'll go to Man City. I thought that he would have ended up in Tottenham, so he's maybe been targeted by Man City. I thought Tottenham would have been a better shout for him. Just it was mentioned tonight on the news that he might be going there, Man City.
It'll be long before he's away then for Man City.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, he's not going to play in front of Haaland, I don't think.
No, but again, maybe they're looking for somebody that can work hard round about him. And I think the wee guy would do a great job in a Premier League club. I really do. I think he buzzes.
No Man City, but Dennis.
No, I would agree with that. I think he'll have a hard job getting a regular place there. But
that's maybe where you're looking at Brighton or Everton.
Postecoglou would have taken him to Tottenham when he went there, and I thought that would have been done the last Christmas window. and it didn't happen. So, we'll just need to wait and see. I think he's still got a future in the English Premiership somewhere. Looking at other teams at the weekend, I thought poor performances were with Southampton and Everton. I did tip Ipswich, who are at the bottom three, to stay up. I think they still will. I watched them against Liverpool. They struggled, but then again, most teams will this year against Liverpool. I thought they were on fire, and it was great to see them with Klopp going and a new manager coming in, that they still had that desire to go and win games. So, as far as fixtures go, if you want to have a few of them,
run through the pertinent ones.
Run through some of them for you. Tomorrow we've got
there's a beauty tomorrow, Villa and Arsenal.
Sorry?
There's a beauty tomorrow, Villa and Arsenal.
Yeah. We've got Brighton are playing Man United, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Leicester, Man City, Ipswich, Southampton, Notts Forest, Tottenham, Everton, and Aston Villa Arsenal. And I tell you what, Ipswich couldn't get a tougher start. Liverpool last week, and then Man City tomorrow. Then on Sunday, you've got Bournemouth, Newcastle, Wolves have got Chelsea, and then Liverpool are playing Brentford. So there's good ties there. I mean, I must admit, over the last few years, I have spent a bit more time watching the English Premiership, because there is a lot of good quality in that division. The other division, I must admit, I haven't looked at it, because we can have saturation point with football. You've got enough of the European ties and the Premiership, and obviously in Scotland. Yeah,
the amount of money floating about down there, James, it should be decent watching football anyway.
Yeah, but I think, we're early doors, we're week 2, but Villa Arsenal tomorrow, these are teams that don't want to drop points already.
Yeah.
These guys can go for the Champions League this season, and Arsenal want to beat City. That's a big game already in week 2.
Yeah, that is the game of the day, but one that also Brighton against Manchester United. United have struggled against Brighton the last couple of seasons, so that's a cracking game for Man United, and Brighton 2 out of 2 at the start of the season if they can win that. So 2 or 3 really good games in England Premiership over the weekend.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people battling for really keep away from that bottom 3 this year. As I say, I'd seen quite a few of the games, and I thought, the big guns got a hold of you, so throws a bit like a rag doll, because some of them were quite deficient in what I've seen. But again, as James touched on earlier, it's early days. We're just at the start of the season, and the window's not closed yet.
In all leagues, that's the thing, indeed. Yeah. One thing before we do finish, Dennis, we always used to say it in the radio, this hour's flown by. Well, an hour and 3 minutes we are in, and we're not quite finished, because our guest wants to talk this week about that rise, probably a disturbing rise, of the ultras in Scottish football, James. Certainly the fans.
Yeah. So for me, I'm sure you guys have noticed as well over the last sort of 3-4 years, there's definitely this rise. You've started where you've got your Green Brigade, you've got your Union Bears, as at Aberdeen you go, it's Red Ultras. And these people have the place for me. Home games, they've got their own stand, they can sit there, they can sing, they can, don't get me wrong, some of the singing shouldn't be there. I can safely say that in a lot of games. But for me, you go to away games and you end up in an away stand with these guys, and they're wearing ski masks, right? You're 45, pal. You drive a van during the week. Why are you wearing a ski mask to a football game and throwing flares? And have you ever sat behind a guy with a massive flag for an hour? Do you know what I mean? You've got kids that can't see over them. They refuse to sit down. Can we just stop it? At home games, I've got your section for it. Batter in, make an atmosphere, make a noise. But away games, you either give them an ultra section in the away allocation, or we just have to scrap it, because it's ridiculous. And to be honest, some of the behaviour I've seen in my own club, even away at friendly games, these guys wearing masks, shouting abuse at the stewards, throwing things at them. There's absolutely no need for it, and I think fans need to self-police a bit better. I have to admit, I've thrown 1 or 2 at my seats, because they turn up, they just want to stand in the middle. I'm like, I've paid for the seat there and I'm sitting in it, And it's I think fans need to self-police a wee bit more, and I just don't like the example it sets for kids. It's almost like if you're going on a away day, you can do whatever you like as long as you wear a mask. the stewards should be asking them to remove their masks. They should be making them behave like, civilized human beings. Or, we should just start mixing the stadiums self-policing. I'm not sure,
Aye.
but it's something that I've said. Well, I agree that it adds atmosphere, but for me, at a home game, great. But on the away ends, I just feel like it's getting out of hand. And how many games now are we seeing things thrown onto pitches where we're hearing chanting we don't need, we're seeing pyrotechnics. It's, it is getting a bit silly now, and, we don't need it.
Yeah.
Just my view, though.
No. I mean, I think you're right in terms of adding atmosphere at a home game. Yeah, that's fantastic. In Germany, every stadium has obviously that set of fans where they've got their own kind of singing section and whatever else. In Dortmund, they've got the yellow wall, which is obviously world renowned, and nobody sees that as a negative thing. I think just in Scotland, society wise, we like to take things that one step further, almost, Dennis.
Yeah, it's something I don't really want to mention too much because it becomes a rant on society in general, which I have a lot of views on, Cammy. You hear quite a few of them. But the thing about it is, if we keep to the football front, how many of them are really going there to watch football? And that's the question I would ask them.
Yeah.
I would ask somebody to do a survey before they get in and name 3 players of each team before you get in. And I bet you they wouldn't know it. And there's your problem, And I know that in Europe it started off, I think it started in Italy. And when you look at where it is really, what's it brought to the game? And James has said, it gives it atmosphere. I don't think it does because everybody's in tenterhooks with what's maybe going to explode. And that's my fear. You can get atmosphere, and we've had atmosphere without these people turning up to matches. I don't think they'll lend anything to the game in Scotland. They might in Europe because I've not been there to see it. But from my point of view, I'd bin a lot of them. Seriously, I think it's a fear factor where youngsters, if I'm a parent with a kid, and I mean a kid, then I wouldn't take them to a game that was close to them because of the fear factor. There's nothing there that says to me that's going to help their education on the football match or be entertained. So for me, no, I'm against it.
Oh, I get that one. I get that.
That was
just
a
obviously comment.
Semi-mild rant.
Listen, that's no bad. That's you having a semi of anything, Dennis. That's fantastic. You know what I mean? Whether it's a rant or otherwise. Just you hear us playing out the background music. Probably the less said about that, the better. But no, I think one thing, James, I'll say is I'd far rather lead a ski mask than one of the bloody drums. You know what I mean? I'll tell you. They're far more irritating, that's for sure. Well, guys, we have overdone it tonight. We're an hour and 7 minutes into the show. We're not quite finished. That's us almost just about done. Thanks very much, as always, to Dennis Newell for being co-host. Thanks very much to guest James Kane. James, it's been a delight. It's been a pleasure. Just need to get that internet connection sorted out, but beyond that, it's absolutely spot on. Next week, we've mentioned Clyde a couple of times already. Next week, we are joined by Clyde fan Dean McCurdy. Dean will be joining us for the show.
That's him. That's the guy.
That's him. So, guys, thanks very much.
Cheers,
you
James.
have been listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch. Maybe next week, guys, we'll catch you on the pitch. Cheers now. Bye-bye.